For thousands of years, one name has echoed through history, a symbol of power, beauty, and tragedy. But who was the real woman behind the legend? Forget everything you think you know from the movies. Today, we're uncovering the true story of Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt. When you picture Cleopatra, what comes to mind? A stunning beauty draped in gold, seducing powerful men? While she was undoubtedly captivating, the real Cleopatra was so much more. She was a brilliant scholar, a cunning politician, and a fierce defender of her kingdom. She wasn't just a queen, she was a force of nature in a world dominated by men. Let's travel back to the 1st century BC. The world is a chessboard, and the biggest players are the mighty Romans. In the middle of this high-stakes game is Egypt, a land of ancient wealth and power, but one teetering on the brink of collapse. This is the world Cleopatra was born into. She became queen at the tender age of 18, inheriting a kingdom riddled with debt, internal conflict, and the looming shadow of Roman conquest. Most would have crumbled under the pressure. Cleopatra thrived. One of the biggest misconceptions about Cleopatra is that she wasn't actually Egyptian, and that's partially true. She was a Ptolemy, a descendant of a Greek Macedonian general who served under Alexander the Great. For nearly 300 years, her family had ruled Egypt, but they largely kept to their Greek traditions and language. Cleopatra, however, was different. She was the first and only Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language. This wasn't just for show. By speaking their language, participating in their religious festivals, and presenting herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis, she connected with her people on a level her ancestors never had. She showed them she was not just a foreign ruler, but their true pharaoh. This clever move earned her the loyalty and love of the Egyptian people, a crucial asset in the turbulent times ahead. And her linguistic skills didn't stop there. Ancient historians tell us she was a polyglot, fluent in at least 9 languages, including Greek, Egyptian, Parthian, and Latin. Imagine being able to negotiate with foreign diplomats in their own tongue, without needing a translator. This gave her an incredible advantage. She wasn't just relaying messages, she was building relationships, understanding nuances, and asserting her own intelligence and authority directly. This was a queen who did her own talking. Now let's talk about Rome. At this time, Rome was the superpower of the ancient world, and its most powerful man was Julius Caesar. When a civil war in Egypt forced Cleopatra from her throne, she knew her only hope was to gain Caesar's support. But how could she reach him when he was surrounded by her enemies in the city of Alexandria? This is where one of the most famous stories about her comes from. According to legend, Cleopatra had herself smuggled past enemy lines, rolled up inside a carpet or a linen sack. When the bundle was unfurled before Caesar, out she came. Imagine his surprise. It was a move of incredible audacity and theatrical genius. She wasn't just asking for help. She was making an unforgettable entrance, demonstrating her courage and resourcefulness in one bold stroke. Caesar, a man who appreciated ambition and intellect, was instantly impressed. But it wasn't just a political alliance. They also became lovers and had a son together, Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. For Cleopatra, this was a strategic masterstroke. An heir with Caesar's bloodline could potentially bridge the gap between Rome and Egypt, creating a new, powerful dynasty. She sailed to Rome with Caesarion, living as Caesar's guest. In the heart of the Roman Republic, this Egyptian queen, with her exotic court and undeniable intelligence, was a sensation. She was also a source of scandal. Many conservative Romans saw her as a dangerous foreign influence. Her presence challenged their traditions and sparked fears that Caesar might move the capital of the empire to Alexandria and rule as a king, with her as his queen. But this dream of a shared future was shattered when Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC. Rome was thrown into chaos. Cleopatra had to flee back to Egypt, her future, and the future of her kingdom, once again uncertain. The Roman world split into factions, and a new power struggle began. Out of the chaos, two men emerged on top. Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, and his most trusted general, Mark Antony. Cleopatra, ever the strategist, knew she needed to secure a new Roman ally. Her choice was Mark Antony, the man who now controlled the eastern half of the Roman territories, including the lands bordering Egypt. Antony summoned her to Tarsus to answer questions about her loyalty. But Cleopatra wasn't going as a subordinate. She was going to make another entrance. She arrived on a magnificent barge with a golden stern and purple sails, rowed by silver oars. She herself was dressed as Venus, the Roman goddess of love, surrounded by attendants. The entire city emptied to witness the spectacle. Instead of Antony summoning her, he found himself being invited to a lavish banquet aboard her ship. She had flipped the script. He came expecting to interrogate a client queen. Instead, he was captivated by an equal. The alliance between Antony and Cleopatra was both political and deeply personal. They fell in love and had 3 children together. For years, they ruled the East from Alexandria, a city that rivaled Rome in its culture and splendor. They dreamed of a great Greco-Roman empire, with their children as its rulers. This was their Donations of Alexandria, where they publicly declared their children rulers of vast territories. To Cleopatra, this was the fulfillment of her life's work, securing a lasting dynasty and a powerful independent future for Egypt. But in Rome, this was seen as an act of treason. Octavian, a master of propaganda, seized on this. He painted a picture of Mark Antony as a man bewitched by a foreign sorceress, a Roman who had abandoned his heritage. He depicted Cleopatra as a decadent and dangerous threat to Roman values. He declared war not on Antony, but on Cleopatra. This was a brilliant political move, framing a Roman civil war as a foreign conflict to defend the Republic. The final showdown came at the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC. The battle was a disaster for Antony and Cleopatra. Their fleet was outmaneuvered and destroyed. They managed to escape and flee back to Egypt, but they knew the end was near. Octavian's forces pursued them, and one by one, Antony's allies and armies deserted him. The final days of their lives are a story of Shakespearean tragedy. Hearing a false report that Cleopatra was dead, a heartbroken Mark Antony fell on his own sword. As he lay dying, he was carried to the mausoleum where Cleopatra had barricaded herself. He died in her arms. Now, Cleopatra was alone, her kingdom lost, her lover dead, and her enemy at the gates. Octavian captured her and planned to parade her through the streets of Rome in his victory procession, a final humiliation for the proud queen. But Cleopatra would not give him the satisfaction. She had one last move to make. According to the famous legend, she arranged for a basket of figs to be brought to her with a deadly asp, a type of cobra, hidden inside. In her final moments, she dressed in her finest royal robes. She chose a death fit for a pharaoh, a sacred death by the bite of a snake, associated with the goddess Isis. By taking her own life, she retained her dignity and denied Octavian his ultimate victory. Her death in 30 BC marked the end of 3,000 years of pharaonic rule and the beginning of Egypt as a Roman province. So, was Cleopatra just a seductress who used her beauty to control powerful men? Absolutely not. She was a brilliant and educated ruler who used every tool at her disposal. Her intellect, her charisma, her political savvy, and yes, her charm, to fight for her kingdom's survival in a world that was closing in on her. She ruled for over 2 decades, navigating treacherous political waters with skill and determination. She was a mother who fought for her children's future, and a queen who fought for her people's independence. The image of Cleopatra that we have today was largely shaped by her enemies, by Roman propaganda designed to justify their conquest. But when you look past the myths, you find one of the most remarkable figures in all of history, a woman of substance, courage, and unyielding will. The real Cleopatra wasn't just the last pharaoh of Egypt. She was a queen who dared to challenge the power of Rome, and in doing so, carved her name into eternity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next deep dive into history. Let me know in the comments who you think the most underrated historical figure is. See you next time.